All right, appreciate it. First of all, thanks for the opportunity. My name is Damaro Wheeler, Special Teams Coordinator, Defensive Backs Coach here at South Dakota School of Mines. Today, I just want to go over punt return drills and expectations that we use here at Mines in order to have some success here. First thing is just our philosophy, not just for punt return, but just special teams in general. We want to be simple but diverse. There's a lot of times when I've been in situations where I've been in a game where I had to grab somebody off the sideline and say, hey, man, I need you to go in. So we'll usually carry about 4 different blocks or returns going into a game. We'll usually have 1 or 2 main returns that we'll do every week, and then we'll also add 1 or 2 blocks per week, just depending on what type of formation we get that particular week. As far as personnel is concerned, looking for smart guys. Nowadays, in the punt world, you'll get a lot of different formations. So you got to have guys that are smart enough to understand what checks need to be made, what adjustments need to be made, what's the cadence when they're getting ready to actually punt the football. So we're looking for smart guys that can understand different formations and how to get the rest of our punt return unit into the different checks. Looking for some length. With some of the techniques you'll see we use, it's important that we got some guys that know how to latch on, and it's good for blocking, and also when you're going to go block an actual punt, being able to expand and get that extra inch helps. Guys that have good get off, guys that can burst. You don't have to be the fastest, but if you got a little bit of burst, whether it's going to go make a block or catching up to a guy once you've been beaten. Good hand-eye also as well, is because, a lot of times those blocks aren't going to be the ones that you practice. It's going to be, a guy getting it with one hand here and there, or the ball isn't, going off exactly where you think it's going to be. So guys that have that good hand-eye and great effort, because it could be a thankless position. You don't get a lot of praise and awards for doing a great job of blocking your butt off and keeping that guy off of your returner. So those are the main things that we're looking for. And then our main motto is win your matchup. Do your 1/11th. Have that mentality that my guy's not going to make the play. It's going to be one of the other 10, but I'm going to do my responsibility. I'm not going to let my guy win the matchup. As far as some of our accomplishments this last season, we were 3rd nationally in block punts. We were 2nd in the conference in punt return average. We feel that we have an opportunity to influence the outcome of the game with this particular unit. Block punt results in an 88% chance of winning, and we train precise techniques for blocks of kicks, and just different blocks we have in the return game. I think the returns and blocks are very complementary. If you do a great job of getting pressure or simulating pressure, what's going to do is going to slow that punt team down as far as their coverage. They're going to hold on a second. Similar to like if you're on a punt team and you're backed up, a lot of times we teach them that, hey, you hold on to that guy until the ball's kicked. And if we do a good job bringing pressure, getting our hands on some footballs, or at least giving an illusion that we're close, what that's going to do is going to slow down the punt team, and that's going to give us that extra second in the return. Because a lot of big returns, just based off the fact that they were able to field the ball. A lot of times, if you're fair catching everything, you won't get that opportunity. So let me go to our principles. When we're going to go block a punt, we're always aiming for the checkpoint. We always want to have the hands below the waist, using a scope, which is in the form of a diamond when we go make a block. We want to stay away from bouncing balls, make the Peter calls, make sure once we hear that, we run off the field. The returners got to do a great job of being vocal. If we do block a punt behind the line of scrimmage, we want to scoop and score. If we block the punt and it goes past the line of scrimmage, we want to stay away and yell Peter. So the 3 do's that we have is be on sides. We never want to be lined up off sides or jump off sides. We want to stay off the punter, and we want to block above the waist and in front. There's nothing worse than getting a block or a big return called back because you're offsides or roughing the punter or you blocking the guy in the back or chop block or whatnot. The three do nots is do not catch the ball inside the 8-yard line. Do not block behind the ball. All right. We won't, like I said, we want to make sure that we don't get a big return or a block called back because of one of those three things. Here's an example. I put this on here because it's an example of what we just talked about. We actually got a block this game, got our hands on the ball. Ball goes past the line of scrimmage, so this is a situation where we need to yell Peter and get away. One guy doesn't. We get lucky because he ends up getting knocked around, but he doesn't touch the ball, which is nice. But two things. We don't want him touching the ball, and we don't want him taking extra shots. So that's why it's important to listen to the Peter calls. Another thing that we teach, and this goes for all of our special teams, but especially in punt return, is the stances. We have three different stances: power, speed, and sprinter. So our power stance is a square stance with feet under the armpits, hands on the thighs. We will say, put your thumbs in the creases. Our speed stance is a receiver stance with our weight on the front leg, knees bent with that forward lean, similar to a wide receiver. And our sprinter stance is our three-point stance with staggered feet and weight on that front leg. So simulating us coming out to run a 40. So we'll use them in three different instances. The power stance we'll use a lot of times if the guy we're responsible for blocking is in a speed stance. The speed stance we'll use when a guy's in a power 2-point stance and giving the illusion that we're coming. And a lot of times the 3-point stance, it just depends on what's more comfortable for the player and also what type of punt formation we're getting. If we're getting a pro-style punt, we'll be more inclined to be in a 3-point stance because they're more than likely going to retreat. So our scouting checklist, this is important for us. Things I look at every week is, first of all, can we block the punt? And if so, what kind of punt? What kind of block do we use? Do we, bring 4? Do we bring 5? Do we come off the edge? Do we come up the middle? Do we cross somebody? Things of that nature. Snap to kick time. How fast is the snapper getting the ball back there, and how fast is the punter getting the ball off? Because that's going to determine whether we need to set up a return or if we need to come after a block. If it's under 2 seconds, then more than likely we're going to come after we're going to go for a return instead of coming after a block. Then also, where's the block point? Most of the time, the punter is going to be back at 14 yards. So if the block point's at 11, or if the block point's even closer, just depending on the steps of the punter, that's going to determine what type of block or if we're going to come at all. As far as the return is concerned, who must we hold up to get a return? Is there gunner / bullets, guys getting down there ASAP? Is there snapper elusive? Is he getting down there? So if we want to get a return, who do we need to make sure we get hands on to slow up so we can field the football? And then also, last but not least, is any fakes or special formations or plays. It's important that we show our kids the different fakes that they have, or if they just come out in a different formation here and there and we need to make a check. Those are the things that we go over weekly to make sure our kids are coached up on that. So here are a couple of the drills we do. Everything we do is we're big on doing a lot of drills, like most people. Mother's repetition, the mother of all learning. So we want to make sure that we rep stuff over and over. So a lot of these drills that I'm going to show you are drills that we do during spring ball, during fall camp, and then we'll also implement them during the season on like a Monday practice, get some quick circuit work in just so we don't lose our fundamentals. And also during the season, you'll have new guys in new roles. So somebody that may not have played on special teams or punt return unit the first 3 games and may be forced into a role game 4. So we want to make sure we knock any rust off with some of these drills. So right here is what we call rip and box. All this is, hey, my guy is starting to stag me. I got to get in a position to where I can't square him up and block him. All I can do is rip him and box him out, just like I'm boxing out for a rebound. So one thing we teach our guys to do is, as they're running downfield, is to take a peek. We set this drill up about usually 15 to 20 yards away. Tell the guy on punt return to take a peek at the returner so he can see if he's moving forward, so that way he'll know what technique to execute. Here's another situation to where, as the punt return guy is coming downfield, he's taking a peek at the returner. Now he can use one of two blocks. Right now he's just choosing to use the rip and box. Hey, I'm just ripping. I'm boxing the guy out and keeping him away from our returner. So right here we have sit and fit. Again, 15 to 20 yards away. You do it how you want. I've done it different ways with cones, but we usually have these guys staggered one by one. So now this guy, you can see 17 is going to take a quick peek at the returner just to see where he's at. As he sees him moving forward, that's replicating him catching the football. What he's going to do is snap his eyes back to the punt guy and understand that, hey, this guy's moving, the returner's moving vertical. So now that means I have to, as he's moving vertical, he understands that now, hey, I got to get ready to sit and fit. We call it sit and fit because I'm sitting my butt down and I'm fitting up on the punt guy. Good job of getting his butt down, getting his hands on, starting to shuffle and work his way back. Now, with this particular rep right here, as he loses position on this punt guy, this is a situation to where now, once he's used his sit and fit, he can go into the rip and box technique right here just to make sure that guy stays off the returner. Same thing here. 36 takes a quick peek upfield. As he sees or feels this guy, the returner starts to get vertical. He starts to sink his hips, get his butt down, sit down and fit off of this punt guy and starts to work back upfield. And as we get, the further upfield we get, we got to understand that now is a time that where we may use our rip and box technique, okay? And then we also want to use the finish drill, which is a combination of both. So now this guy just has to make a decision. If I can sit and fit on him, fine. If not, then I got to rip and box. As I'm starting to get stacked and this guy's trying to beat me with speed, I understand that, hey, I got to rip and I got to box this guy off to keep him off the returner, okay? Same thing here. This guy gives him a little hesitation move. He doesn't feel, as the guy on punt he's waiting to see if the returner is going to go upfield. And then when that happens, the punt return guy realizes that he doesn't have to rip and box. He can just wash this guy away. These don't have to be the most physical blocks. All it is about body position. This guy's taking a sharp angle. He's starting to feel himself get stacked. He's throwing that outside hand. I would like to see a better job with him boxing him out, but he does a great job with the rip and just keeping that guy off the returner, okay? So here's a clip in the game for some of these different techniques. Here's a situation right here where I would prefer him to rip and box because we get lucky there. They don't call it a clip just because of his momentum. Good job by the returner. And as you can see here, here's an example of us actually ripping and boxing. He does a great job of not blindsiding him. He's just ripping, boxing, squaring him up, getting him out the way. We just lose a little bit of room right there, run out of space, or we could have been off to the races. Here's another example of a guy having to make a decision. You'll see right here, he's out of position, he's beat. Do I rip and box? Do I sit and fit? Or do I do a great job of just making sure I don't get a clip? And that was a great job by that young man right there. This is one of our middle returns. So we usually carry a couple of different returns. There's only really two. You got your middle return. You have your boundary return, boundary walls, and your field walls. We usually carry a couple of those. Good thing about the middle return is that if they do kick it into the boundary, it can give the illusion that you're going to do a wall field return, even though it's middle. So what happens is you get these guys over pursuit. That way that guy can get vertical. So here's another drill we do. So there's two different phases. There's the hold-up phase, the at the line of scrimmage phase, and then the finish phase, which is what we just got finished watching. So this part is the beginning line of scrimmage phase, hold up and mirror. So we'll use this out of our power stance. And so all this is the guy furthest away from the camera is the punt return guy, and the guy closer to the camera is the punt team guy. So all they're doing on the first whistle is working side to side. He's working on getting his eyes in the right place, right at his numbers, moving lateral, stepping, replacing with them. And then on the second whistle, the guy will release. So what we'll do is we'll punch with the opposite hand. He goes right, we punch left. He goes left, we punch right. And all we're doing is placing that hand, thumbs up, placing it on the shoulder pads and trying to wash him. Now this works for a lot of times for our middle return. So what we want to do is force the guy the widest route. But if he does get inside of him, we want to wash him across the opposite hash and let the returner do magic. Good job by the guy in the middle. He's not losing a lot of ground. He's working side to side, and he washes his guy off 7 yards laterally, which is just going to open up more space for our returner. Same thing on the left. He washes his guy out about 4 yards. The guy on the inside, on the furthest right, he gets beat inside, but his job is to just go and just wash this guy as far across the hash as he can. Here's another example of it right here. Well, one thing we don't want to do is get overextended. You can see that from the guy in the middle. He's starting to get kind of overextended, punching with two hands. We just want to punch with one and widen this guy. Once we widen him, we want to put our hand on his shoulder and harass him downfield. Same thing. Guy furthest to the left. He tries to punch with two hands, gets overextended, gets out of his frame. Guy in the middle does a good job. He's a DB. I would like to see him get his thumbs up so he can widen the guy a little bit more. The guy all the way to the furthest right, he tries to use two hands. The guy grabs him and shags him down. But the principle of this is just to widen the release. This is something we use depending on what stance the team we're facing or guy you're guarding is in. And then also it helps for your corners or your ones or whatever you call them. So here's an example right here. Show you. So here's an example of our speed to power. Everybody's lined up in a speed stance, but he's going to go from speed to power, and he's going to work the mirror hold up. Good job right here. Harassing with one arm. And he's take this guy. This is a long snapper. He's the guy that we felt that we needed to block this particular week. He takes him from the hash and widens him to the middle of the field and does a great job. Now, if we can get one more block here held up, there's a good chance we get a return right here, middle return. Here's another example of being in a power stance with these two guys right here, and then also the mirror hold up. And as far as when I was talking about personnel, here's a guy right here to the right who's a receiver, not a DB, but just working the technique over and over. He does a good job right here, widening this guy about 8 yards, getting hands on him and harassing him. Same thing right here to the left, working shuffle, working on getting his hands on that guy. Does a good job of making a great decision of not blocking in the back. And what happens is a lot of times these gunners are running so fast that they end up just overrunning the play, and that's what happens here. All right, so this drill right here is an attacking clamp. This is a part of the first phase. line of scrimmage phase. So we have we have our hold up and mirror, and then we have our attack and clamp. So all this is kind of self-explanatory. We're going to attack the guy. The guy closest to the screen is on punt. The guy furthest away is on punt return. So what we're teaching them is that, hey, we want to go and take as much space away as we can. So we're going to line up in our sprinter stance. And at the snap, we're just going to run, attack that guy and clamp him. Most of the times, they're not going to call holding within the line of scrimmage. So we're telling these guys to go attack them and clamp them with two hands. This is especially good against a pro style kick slide punt team because they're retreating. So what we do is we'll rep this. Hey, you attack, you run, attack, and you try to drive your guy back as far back as you can. If we can get him back an extra 2 yards, then great. And one thing that sets this up, I believe, is when you do show a lot of pressure as far as coming to block punts, what's going to happen is these guys are going to take their time to make sure they block you, but the whole time you're really blocking them. So we line them up about one by one apart and have these guys on the punt team, hey, you're stepping and blocking to your left or stepping and blocking to your right. And what we're teaching these guys is, like I said, I don't like the false step here. By 28, we want to push off that front foot and get that second step up. And then we want to drive this guy, clamp on him, and drive this guy back. We'll worry about holding calls later. Here's a good job of, hey, making this guy retreat 3 yards. Making this guy retreat 3 yards. That's exactly what we want. All that is that's going to buy time for our returner. This guy doesn't do as good of a job. He's just trying to stay square. What we're saying is if we're going to miss, we're going to be aggressive and miss, and we're going to push this guy back. So here are some examples. Like I stated earlier, you got different types of returns. You have your middle, your field wall, and your boundary wall. So here's an example of a return where we're having our field wall set up. We want to have these guys about 3 to 5 yards away from each other. So right here, I give you an example of an attack and clamp. This guy does a great job right here. Now, he doesn't do a good job of driving the guy back. He gets kind of overpowered right here, but he's being physical and he's holding on for dear life. And what happens is they end up running into somebody. And now we got one of the guys that was a threat actually on the ground. So this clip right here, here's an example of attack and clamp, field wall, and here's a rip and box, making sure we block this guy with our back. Now we have to be careful, like I talked about earlier, making sure we don't block behind the play, but we do a good job of keeping that guy off the returner right there. And now we off to the races for about a 30-yard gain. Field wall getting set up. Turner does a good job. So put this on here because, like we talked about earlier, we don't want to go block behind the play. So we lost two of our wall guys to go make blocks behind the play. They don't get called for clips or anything. But as you can see, as this return sets up, if we have these two guys working upfield, that's two less guys that this guy has to worry about making miss. So if we get those two guys to not block behind the play and start working upfield to get these two blocks on these guys, chances are we score on this and don't get tackled. But this is a quote that I always tell the guys: repetition is your best friend. The more you do something, the better. And I really believe in that. So these drills are drills. These are our base four fundamental drills. We do other drills as well for, making sure we're teaching those specific techniques for the blocks. I got some new drills that I want to use this year as well. But we want to make sure that we do a good job of gaining that muscle memory of just doing the drills over and over. And our guys should get bored with them because they're so good at them. It doesn't matter if they're a redshirt freshman or a redshirt senior. We want to make sure we continue to stress how fundamentally sound that we need to be. As far as goals, we don't have goals. I kind of got away from the word goals. I like to use the word standards. I think goal is something that we're aspiring to get to. Like, no, we don't aspire to get to anything. We're going to do something. We're going to block a punt or force a bad kick. meaning if we don't block one, we're going to bring enough pressure or give the illusion that we're bringing pressure to where teams. It happened to us about 3 times this year where the punter shanked it just because he was worried about how close we got to blocking the punt. We want to make sure we do a good job of securing all fakes. We had a couple fakes ran on us last year, so we always want to give the illusion that we're fundamentally sound. Even on certain particular ones, you may not be because you're going for an all-out block or whatnot. So that's very important for us. We want to play penalty-free. That's why we don't block in the back or block behind the play. Our 3 dudes, make sure we're beyond on sides. Make sure we're not blocking behind the ball and we're staying off the punter. And then we want to have 100% kick security. We've got to make sure that whoever we have back there returning the punts is somebody that we trust to make that play. Nothing worse than giving the ball back to the offense. And then we want to set up a score. We're going to set up a score, whether it's with a block or whether it's with a big return that's going to get us past the 50 into opponent territory. And most importantly, we got to win our matchups. It's the mentality of saying that, hey, I'm going to win. My guy is not going to make the play. I make these guys repeat that daily. My guy is not going to make the play. I don't care who else makes it, but I'm going to win my personal battle in my matchup. So those are the main drills that we use and the standards that we live by here. Here's my email, contact info if you need to email me about drills or philosophy or anything. My Twitter's on there, Coach_DDub. Like most everybody that do these, we all got it from somebody or help recreate something that we've seen. So feel free to reach out to me. I'm in the same shoes as you guys. I'm always looking to get better, and the more information we can share, the better. So I appreciate you guys. If you need anything, feel free to ask, and go Hard Rockers.